everybody, welcome to my channel. My name's Luisa. How's everybody doing? I hope you're doing well. How would you like to make a memory wire bracelet like the ones you just saw in very little time without having to unload and reload and unload and reload? If you're interested in learning how to do that, you're in the right place. If you're new and you've never done it before, you're in the right place. I'm about to show you a very efficient way of making memory wire bracelets so that the patterns of the beads line up perfectly. Now normally I would remind everybody about the timestamps in the description, but today I would like to encourage you to watch the next few minutes because I'm going to be giving you some very important tips on the kinds of beads you should be using, and I want to show you the tool that I use. Alright guys, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so making memory wire bracelets can be a little bit challenging because the goal is to lay out nice rows or coils of beads in patterns or colors. And so many of us struggle because we end up, having to unload and reload, and it's a bit of a pain. But let's just imagine that we have a 5-coil bracelet, okay? So I have a method that I use, and I call it my anchoring beads method. So basically what that means is that whenever I lay out bracelets, I need beads that are going to anchor the other beads in place, okay? So for example, say I have a center bead right here, and then a smaller one here and a smaller one here. Whatever I place above and below this needs to anchor or be cradled within these spaces, okay? So if I place a bead here and another one here and another one here and another one here, now I've created a structure that's going to keep these coils somewhat in place. Now it's not foolproof, okay? It does switch around with movement. That's just the nature of coil bracelets. But this definitely helps. So no matter what kind of design you do, if you can anchor the beads in place, it's going to help hold it together. And when I say hold it together, I'm referring to the actual design. Okay, this is if you do like a center focal on a memory wire bracelet. Obviously, if you're just doing rows of colors, you don't have to worry about that so much. But if you're trying to do some kind of a design, the anchoring bead method is the way to go. So here's an example where I used anchoring beads, and I was able to create this focal design right here in the middle of the bracelet. So everything's lined up, as you can see, and it doesn't move around very much. It moves around a little bit, but not too bad, okay? That's the challenge with these bracelets. When you put them on, the designs, whatever designs you make, are going to shift around. That's just the nature of the bracelet, okay? But if you have anchoring beads like this, it won't happen as much, okay? I'm not going to say that it doesn't happen at all, but the type of beads you use are important, like I said before, okay? So these are rounded, they're faceted rounds actually, so they seem to hold the design in place a little bit better, okay? So there is a little bit of planning. It's not foolproof, guys, okay? It really isn't, okay? But the guide that I have developed is going to help you to create this kind of thing as long as you use the right beads, okay? And I'm not making this video to try to sell you anything, okay? Because you totally can do it without the guide and without the other things that come with it. But I'm just showing you what the possibilities are, okay? So here's another example, okay? We'll make this one 5 as well. So you can have a series of beads right here of a certain size, and then perhaps you're going to have some other ones here as well, okay, something like that. If you place an anchoring bead here, for example, say you place a big square one, it's going to help to hold it together as well, okay, because it's not a rounded surface. So anything that's rounded is going to cause the coils to slide, okay? So if you have nothing but rounded beads or even rondelles are notorious because they don't have a lot of surface above and below, it's going to slide. The design is going to slide around. It's not going to stay put, okay? So you need something, a bead of some sort that either has a wide surface, okay, or a square surface, or some kind of surface, maybe faceted, that prevents the coils from sliding this way, okay? That's what happens with memory wire bracelets. They also stretch, so that pulls it out of its orientation, okay? And you really can't do much about that unless you get the correct size coil, one that fits loosely on whoever is wearing it, okay? If you get a coil that's really snug, where the person has to stretch it to put it on, whatever design you do, no matter how meticulous you are, is going to pull out of its orientation. It's going to pull out of place. That's just what happens, okay? So the anchoring beads method is a really good idea, and it's a good system, because that will help, okay? It's not foolproof, but it's definitely going to help. And then, like I said, you know, if you're just doing rows of colors, it's not such a big deal, okay? All right, so let me go ahead and show you the tool that I use that's really helped me a lot, and it's the one that I've submitted into the patent office. It's a provisional patent right now, so let me just show you, and I'll go over the details of how it works. So here's how it comes. Okay, let me take it out of the packaging. And it comes with these rods. I call these magic rods. You'll see why in a few moments. And these are little stoppers that go on the rods. So I'm going to go ahead and put the stoppers on. They slide right onto the end of the rod. Okay, one on each end. Okay, here's the Coil Buddy, and that's not the official name, okay? It's not trademarked yet, but that's what I'm thinking about calling it. As you can see, it's called Memory Wire Bracelet Guide, and this is the 60mm size. So that means that this works with memory wire that's 60mm in diameter. This line and this line define the length of the circumference, okay? So if it's a 60mm diameter, the length is 188.5 millimeters, which is the equivalent of 7.5-inch bracelet, maybe a little bit less than 7.5, okay? In addition to these lines that define the circumference, you also have a center line, which helps you align things if you have to have some kind of a focal, okay? Or if you want to just do half of a coil. Down at the bottom, I've got some information about how it's filed with the US Patent and Trade Office. It's an early prototype, and the specs and the materials and the method and everything is filed with the USPTO, and it's a provisional patent right now. This guide will be available in different sizes later on, but for now it's on my Etsy store. This size, along with the rods, the magic rods, okay? And what's so neat about these rods is that they're made out of very hard steel, and they're very thin, okay? So that means that you can load them up with beads that are heavy, and beads of different size holes, including ones that have very small holes, okay? Like I was saying, these rods are probably more important than the guide itself, okay? Just because of the material that it's made of. It's hard steel that don't bend very easily, okay? And they retain their shape. That's what's so nice about them, okay? If you use your own wire, you can still do it, but you'll find out that when you start loading your wire with beads, it's gonna not retain its shape. It's not gonna be easy to handle. You know, it'll just make the job a little bit more difficult. You can still do it though, okay? You can still use my method without these materials. So anyway, guys, you know, these rods took me a long time to find. I had to look for a source, and then I had to have them custom cut, so it's not like you can go out and find them yourself. But I am going to share my method with you, okay? You're going to find this method very useful, hopefully, and it's going to help you to make beautiful memory wire bracelets. Eventually, I will have different sizes up on my Etsy store, smaller sizes for sure, and perhaps larger if there's an interest, but for now, it's just going to be the 60mm. Okay, let's get started. I'm not going to use this just yet, but I am going to use the rods. And as you can see, they come with a stopper on each end, okay? So I'm going to take one of the stoppers off, and these are very tight, okay? So they're a little difficult to get off and on, but that's because, you know, I wanted the stoppers to hold the beads in place. So you don't want anything too loose because you don't want to load it and then have the beads fall off. So let's go ahead and start with one row. And here's a gorgeous Jesse James strand that I purchased a while ago, and I haven't done anything with it. So now's a perfect opportunity to use some of these beads. I'm definitely going to use this one as a focal, okay? And I kind of like some of these lighter ones just because of the contrast. So there are two of them. So let me pull those two aside. And I'm going to go ahead and load these beads onto my wire. Okay, these are the center focal beads. To see how they look. Okay. Alright, so let's see. I think I want to put something else in there, maybe some clear beads, and I think I have a couple of disc-shaped beads here. There's one, and here's another one. Put the rest away because I'm not going to be using them. And I'm going to thread them on like this, just to break it up a little bit. Okay, so whenever you thread beads on and you need to go to the other side of the design, put your stopper on, flip it around, and now you can unload this side and thread on whatever you need to thread on. Rearrange or whatever it is that you need to do, okay? Put your stopper back on. That's always good practice. So we have this so far, okay? I have these lovely faceted crystal beads, and they're rondelles. They're pretty large. Let's see what this says. 8 by 6 in a champagne AB color. I would introduce some color. Okay, and these are chips, and they're a turquoise color. And I like using chips because of the shape, okay? And this is the kind of shape that helps to anchor the beads. Okay, they're not round, so these are going to do a really good job of anchoring the beads in place. And they add some color, which is what I like. So I'm going to add some of these beads on either side of the center focal beads, okay? And I'm not sure how many. You don't really have to worry about that, okay? Because whatever we do on one side, we're going to do on the other side, and then we're going to hold it up against the guide, and that will help us to make sure that it's symmetrical. So let's go ahead and start with this many, okay? And we'll put the stopper on this side, and we'll do the same thing to this side now. So we remove the stopper on this side, and we go ahead and load some of these beads, and I did 5 on the other side, so I'm going to do 5 on this side, and then we'll see how it looks, because some beads are smaller than others. That looks pretty good, okay? Put your stopper on. It's good. It's a good habit to get into. And now let's take the guide and see how much space we need to fill. Alright, so I'm going to add beads on either side, and the beads are going to extend so that they fill this space to where the line is, okay, on both sides. Alright, so for that I'm going to use these beads right here. Take the stopper off, and we'll put some of these on. And these are a little bit bigger than the chips, but that's okay, because it's still going to look pretty good. And if you ever get beads on a strand, guys, keep them on the strand so you can grab several at the same time like this. It just makes it quicker when you go to thread them, okay? Put your stopper back on. And get your guide and have a look to see whether you need more beads. And it looks like we need one more bead on this side, okay? So 2, 4, 6, 8 for a total of 9. Put your stopper back on, flip it around, and now we're going to do 9 on this side. Alright, so that's 9. And again, put the stopper back on. And let's see how that fits on the guide. It fits pretty good. Let me bring it up so you can see. Okay, there's your center bead right on the center line, and there's your bead on the left right here by this line, and your bead on the right. So this row is complete. Okay, so now we're going to do the row below and the row above that. So we're going to get another one of these rods. Okay, and let's think about this now. So we want something that's going to anchor everything in place, and I think what I'm going to do is maybe add some more of these chips in the center of this rod, because that's going to hold these in place. Okay, anything that is jagged like this and it's not rounded is going to anchor the beads in place. So if you put chips here and here, that's going to help a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and put a series of these chips. I guess I need to remove my stopper. That would help. Okay. All right, that's 4, 5, 7. I think I'll do 8. Okay. That's looking pretty good. Let me show you a different way of doing this. Okay, so you don't have to have it centered. Okay, you really don't. You can move them all the way to the end and then fill the rest with what I call filler beads. That's another way to do it. Okay, and then when you go to load them, whatever filler beads you put on there, you'll split into half, into 2. So you'll load half of them first, and then the center focals, and then the other half. So that's another way to do it. But I'm not done with this yet. I think I'm going to add something else, some accent beads of some sort. And these look really cute. They're cube beads, and I think I'll just use some of these silver ones. And the reason I'm using silver is because the focal bead that I selected has silver accents on it. Let me show you. Okay, so it needs to coordinate. It doesn't always have to coordinate, but I just think it looks better when it does. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add one of these, one on each side of this these chips. Okay, so put your stopper on, flip it around, and do another one here. Okay, like this. All right. And now we're going to add some filler beads, and for that I think I will use these beautiful jasper beads. These are 6mm that I got from Bead Box Bargains. So let me go ahead and snip this strand, but I'm not going to take them off. Like I said before, I'm going to leave on as many as I can. Take the stopper off and thread on a few. Okay, just like that. And now let me do several at the same time to save time. So I'm grabbing 3 at a time, just like this, and putting it on the rod. Okay, I'm going to stop right here, put my stopper back on, and get my guide and see how it fits. Okay. Alright, so if I place this bead right up against the end, I get to see how many I need, and it looks like I need maybe 2, right here. So let me go ahead and add 2, and then we'll take another look. That's 1, and that's 2. And the reason I'm so picky about putting the stopper on is because I've lost beads many times where I've been careless and not put the stopper on, and then they end up all over my floor, and that's no fun. Okay, so this looks pretty good. There is a little bit of space, as you can see. Let me bring it up close. So on this side, right beside the cube here, there's a little bit of space there, and same thing on this side, but it's not big enough to add another bead. Well, let's count. Let's see. Let's have a look how many we have. We want even numbers, okay? Because we do want even numbers of these jaspers on either side of this design. Okay, so let's count and see how many we have. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26. So we have an even number. So I don't want to add another bead because then we'll have an odd number. So what I'm going to do now, instead of adding another one of these jaspers, I'm going to add some spaces, and they're 8 seed beads, okay? And I think they're big enough to fill that space. So let's just put 1 on each end, or 2 actually. I could put 2 right here because we're going to split them up later on when we go to load them onto the memory wire. Okay. And if you're not following so far, you will see later on what I'm talking about. Okay, I know it can be tricky if you've never done this before, especially if you're new. Alright, so now I'm going to put this on here and take a look and see the spacing. So on this side I'm okay, on this side I'm good too. So this is good to go, and I have an even number of jasper beads here. Okay. Alright, so this is another way of doing this. Okay, you don't have to put it in the middle like I have, because later on when we go to load it, like I said, we are going to load half of these jaspers and then put the center focals and then the other half. Okay, so whichever way is the easiest, just choose a method. Okay, so now I'm going to do another one just like this. Okay, and I don't want to bore you by doing it on camera, so I'm going to go ahead and do it off camera, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back, and I've threaded the beads, as you can see, and look at this. I've got my 2 cubes on the end here instead of 1 on each side. No big deal. Okay, that's what's so nice about this method. If you forget to thread on a bead, just put it on there, and when you go to put them on the coil, you'll know to put one first and then the other. Okay, same thing over here with these seed beads. Okay, we're gonna split it up, so we'll do 1 seed bead, then the jaspers, and then we'll load the center, and then the rest of the jaspers and the other seed bead. Okay, you'll see in a second what I'm talking about. So that's done, and so now I'm going to do 2 more rows. Okay, so I'll need 2 more rods. So I think I'm going to use this beautiful strand of turquoise colored imperial jasper. Okay, I think it's going to pick up the color of the chips as well as the other tan colors in the other strand. Okay, so let me go ahead and snip the end off. And I'm going to load a few. And the holes are pretty small on these beads, but like I said, because the rods are really thin, it's going to work out just fine. Okay, so let's think about this now. I'm going to have this color for sure, but I think I'm going to introduce something else here. I have these beads here. These are 4mm cube beads in a gypsy gold color. Okay, I think that's what it says. It's a metallic color, and to me it's kind of iris colored because you've got purples and golds and rose gold. So I think what I'll do is have some of these turquoise and some of these beads. Okay, so let's maybe do half and half. So I'm going to load some of these. All right, so let's have a look here. So that's the center point, Okay, and it looks like I need a few more. But what I'm going to do, because I always like to have some kind of accent bead at the very end, so what I'm going to put at the end is going to be maybe a silver cube, just like we used up here in these rows, okay? A silver cube and maybe a jasper bead at the end. So let's go ahead and thread some more of these turquoise colored beads first, okay? Put my stopper back on. I've changed my mind. I think I'm going to do it on this side. So I'm going to move these down and I'm going to thread these on, okay? So let's go ahead and thread these on, just a few, like this. But I do want this to be in the center, okay? So it looks like I need one more bead, and that's okay. I can fix that. That's what's so nice about this method. I can add that one bead after I get done threading some of these on, okay? So before using this method, of course, I was just like everybody else, loading and unloading until I got it right. And that's very time consuming and it can be a little maddening as well. Let me put my stopper on before I go any further. And I'll switch to this side. I'll add my one bead. Okay. All right, and now get my guide. This one falls right in the dead center, and now I need to fill this side with some more of these beads and then my jasper bead at the end and a silver cube. So let me go ahead and load some more of these beads on. My cube and one of these jaspers like this. Okay, put the stopper on. And let's see how it fits. Okay, so it looks like I need more beads here. All right, as you can see, I've got a space right there that I need to fill. Okay, so not a big deal, guys. Just remove your stopper and remove the end beads and then add whatever beads you need to add, okay, until you get it right. It's as simple as that. Let's have a look before we go any further. Okay, so I'm gonna say that's good enough, and let me put my cube and my jasper bead back on. And my stopper bead. Take a look at the guide and see how it fits, and that's looking pretty good. I think I'm gonna stop. I think that's pretty much what I want. Let me show you up close. So there's this side, okay, there's the center, and there's this side. Okay, it's pretty good. It's, you know, it's pretty close. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to do one identical to this, okay, and I'll be right back. So I've loaded the turquoise colored beads, and I want to show you something real quick. So you don't even have to count. You can just hold it up to the other strand and you can look at it just by eyeballing to see if it's the same length, okay? All right, let me continue loading. Okay, I'm back and I've loaded the second one. I love these magic rods. I love them. What do you think of that as a trade name? Magic Rods and Coil Buddy Guide. I think it's a great combination. Okay, so it's basically gonna be like something like this. Okay, this is how it's gonna go when we go to load it. And of course, like I said, these are gonna be centered right below and above this center bead. Okay, so now what we need to do is cut ourselves a piece of memory wire coil. All right, so here's my coil. And the way I do it, I'm usually pretty generous because I get this on Amazon and it's so cheap. I know Beadaholic and Beadalon carries them, Fire Mountain Gem carries them, but I can get a whole bunch of loops for very little on Amazon. So the way I do it is I ignore this first one, okay, and then I count 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I snip on the 6th one. And of course, if you're gonna cut memory wire, always use special memory wire cutting pliers, okay? Do not use regular because you will ruin your pliers. I'm sure many of you already know that. So now we have to form a loop, okay? Here's another thing that I do different, okay? I don't know why people do the loop towards the outside of the circle, so they curl it up this way. To me, I don't like that because it sticks out. I really don't like that. I like to curl my loops towards the inside so it's more tucked in, and I've never had problems with that. So, you know, I'm not sure why people curl it against its natural curve. I find that a little strange. So you'll need your round nose pliers. Place it on the very end, just like this. Okay. Grab it really hard because this is very hard wire. Use your thumb, push against the wire, and then go ahead and turn your pliers until you get a loop. And the loop is closed. You definitely want the loop to be closed. Okay? Just like this. Once you have that, you're ready to load. You get your first row, which is this one. Okay, and remember we're going to have this at the very end. Alright, so we're going to start right there. Take your stopper off, thread your jasper on, and then the cube or whatever beads you're using, obviously. Okay, and then once again I like to do several at the same time, and because these steel rods are straight, it holds the beads in alignment so it makes it easier to thread them on several at the same time. And then slide them down. And let's go ahead and get the second row, which is this one with the chips. This one has the seed beads. All right, so we're going to start with a seed bead, and I'm going to remove both of them and leave one here. So we're going to start with a seed bead, and then we're going to load half of the jasper beads. And I think we said there were 26. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26. So that means we need to load 13. So here we go. Okay, so I'm going to put my seed bead back on because I don't want to forget it. And I'm going to put my stopper. And now I'm going to switch to this side. I'm going to take both of these cubes off because I only need one. All right, so one goes on first, and then my chips. And then my other cube. Okay, And now I'm going to continue threading these jaspers, the second half, and my seed bead, and move them down. It's a good idea to check your beads, okay, whenever you finish a row, just to make sure everything's going on properly. So what I do is I put a stopper on the coil to keep everything in place so I don't lose anything. Put it on the end, and then go ahead and move your beads down. Okay, move them down and check to see how it's looking so far, and it looks okay so far. Alright, so we're going to continue threading. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to my focal row, the center row, okay? And this one's pretty simple. We start at one end, remove your stopper, okay? And thread on the beads. Alright, so let me put my stopper back on, and we'll slide everything down. It's looking pretty good. I'm liking it. Alright, so we're going to continue. I'm going to go ahead and thread these other two on. Before I finish the final row, I wanted to show you a little bit of a technique. So when you take them off the rod, the best thing to do is to hold the rod with these fingers like this, grab a few beads, like I said, more than one at the same time between your fingers like this, and then thread them on. So again, put your fingers on the rod, hold on to it, grab the other end, the beads from the other end, and thread them on. All right, let me finish up. Okay, I've loaded the last row, and I'm going to put my stopper onto my coil, and I'm going to move the beads all the way down. Okay. Make sure there are no spaces. When you're working with chips, it's a little challenging because they don't slide as easily as round beads, obviously. So you want to make sure that you have your chips all the way across, all the way down the coil. And then, of course, you want to check your pattern to make sure that it's what you want. As you can see, everything's perfectly lined up. And because we used these chips, they're acting as anchor beads, and that's what you want. I'm going to go ahead and finish up the bracelet. So using your cutters, your memory wire cutters, cut off so you leave yourself about 1/2 inch approximately. It depends on how big your loop is. Okay, everybody's loops are different, so you're going to have to choose. And here we go. We're going to go ahead and form a loop and close it up. Okay, that's pretty closed. And here we go. There it is, guys. Look how pretty this is. See how easy it was? Everything's lined up. The back looks great. Check out the seed beads. They're all lined up. I'm pretty happy with this one. So another thing you want to do is you want to put it on to make sure that it's looking okay on the wrist. Okay, as you can see, it looks pretty good. There's the back. I'm going to put some charms on there. Okay, and there we go. It's finished. How pretty is that? That is so beautiful. I love it. I love this bracelet, guys. This is so pretty. All right, let me go ahead and clear my board, and I'm going to come back and say goodbye. I love this bracelet. I love how it turned out. I hope you've learned something today. I hope this video has helped you. If you're new, give it a shot, give it a try, and let me know how it goes. And if you're a new subscriber, thank you so much for subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed, please think about doing so. If you're interested in purchasing the Coil Buddy or the magic rods, I have limited supply on my Etsy store. I will be getting more later on, but I need some time to get the kits together. All right, guys, that's all I have for you today. I hope you've found this video interesting and informative and educational. I'm looking forward to seeing you again. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.